You're listening to Hearthcasual, the Hearthstone podcast for heroes of the battlegrounds, tavern brawlers, dungeon runners, and everyone else looking for fun off the ranked ladder.
Well met, goblins and gnomes, and welcome to episode 50 of Hearthcasual. I, of course, am Brian Black, and with me, as always, is resident dad legend and aspiring member of the Hearthstone Illuminati, Mr. Kevin Ellis. How are you doing, Kevin?
I dream of the day and night. That's all I think about, is just getting into the Illuminati. And I've done a lot of weird culty stuff to get there, if I'm honest. Like, I don't even want to talk about it, because if I did, I don't think they would invite me. So just know it's been getting weird, okay? Just know. Not that it wasn't ever not weird, but you get where I'm going with this. Okay, sounds good.
How does one even join the Hearthstone Illuminati? Apparently, Frodan knows. I'd love to know how to join the Hearthstone Illuminati. Is it one of those things where you don't choose them, they choose you?
I think, if we go off of Frodan as a model, you've got to have just really colorful hair and suits would be where I'm at with that one. Like, I don't know. The more glitter, the better.
I don't know what I can do about that.
Yeah.
Maybe I can go with like a neon blue beard.
That actually you could pull off pretty well, if I'm honest.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well,
I can't. I am completely beardless, as you know.
As folks can see, we are actually doing this as a video cast and a podcast. So if you are watching on YouTube, on Warcraft Radio's YouTube channel, welcome. We have with us for episode 50 a very special guest. He has been around the game for quite some time, and one of the things that we have not talked about often on Hearthcasual is Fireside Gatherings, which I think are an important aspect of the game. So with me right now to join us is Scott, aka Bites, one of the most well-known Fireside Gathering innkeepers in all the land. So much so that, Scott, you have even cosplayed at BlizzCon as the innkeeper, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Hello. I thought if anyone is going to be the innkeeper, it should be an actual innkeeper, which is what you call the people that host the firesides. So I was a very try-hard innkeeper, and I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be Hearthstone Brew.
And I'd say you pulled it off rather well. I was actually there at the one where you did that. And I thought was a great job, and you and I have actually met a couple times with your involvement with helping out with Hearthstone stuff at Con Before the Storm. You were there for like the first one that we put together, and I again thank you very much for everything you did then. Back then, Fireside Gatherings, I want to say, were probably just like a year into their run at that point.
Well, Firesides came around pretty early on in Hearthstone. The first Fireside I actually hosted, I think, was in 2015, late 2015. So they've been around, but they had kind of an up and down life. So they got very popular, and then they kind of faded away and came back. But there's been innkeepers hosting events pretty much since the game started.
So I guess one of the questions I have for you is, everyone does it for a reason, they get some sort of enjoyment or fun out of it, but I'm just kind of curious, what is it that you enjoy the most about just organizing and putting together those gatherings?
I love Hearthstone, and I'm a very passion-driven person, so when I get involved in one of my passions, I like to contribute. I like to give back or be a part of the community in some way. I'm not just someone who likes to sit back and enjoy my obsessions. So when Fireside Gatherings came around, I'd already had some experience running events in the past, from being in a band and from hosting restaurant events. So I went to a Fireside Gathering, and I remember it wasn't a really well-run event, and I came away feeling, I think I could do a better job at this, and I love Hearthstone, so I just started to host events at a local barcade, and for me, I have the pleasure of being a host. I like to put an event together, and I like to see people happy, and I like to exceed people's expectations. So when they come to an event, it's something different than what they're expecting.
Yeah, I'd say one of the things that I've noticed about some of the stuff you've done with Fireside Gatherings, at least at the content that I've been at that you've put together, is you definitely don't go for the bare minimum. You bring a little extra to the thing, some side games. I've seen some pictures of like some of the stuff that you've put together for like the launch of Kobolds and Catacombs, going with a little D&D thing going on there. You get pretty creative when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, and that's kind of not expected of anyone that's hosting a Fireside Gathering, and it's really not necessary. What I've learned over the many years and many events is the most important part with a Fireside Gathering is just the community and just kind of bringing together people that share that same interests. But I'm also a creative person, and I kind of use Fireside Gatherings as an outlet to do some really creative things. So I like to make my own games. I like to build things. I've done some very interesting things, and at the Fireside Gathering for Kobolds and Catacombs, I actually wrote a role-playing game that combined like Dungeons and Dragons and and Hearthstone together. So you would go through an adventure as a big group, and then you would break off when there was an encounter. Instead of rolling a d20, you would go through different missions and different quests using Hearthstone as the d20 to see if you could solve it or not. And then for that was called the Hearthstone Adventure Companion. That was the system that I made for the game, and I made multiple adventures. The second adventure I turned into kind of a stage show where I actually invited people up on stage and had them read out like parts and act as characters on stage, and had like music that went along with it, and it was a little over the top. So I think that's the best way to describe my events are over the top.
Well, I like that you put that extra effort and that extra energy in there. Now, for people that may have not been to a Fireside Gathering before, and they've perhaps heard of it, they've seen Blizzard mention it briefly, but they haven't gone to one, they haven't done too much research on what it is. Can you tell listeners what exactly they get out of a Fireside Gathering experience, at least at the base level, that's different from just playing on their phone or playing on their PC at home?
Sure. Well, the first thing is Fireside Gatherings you meet in a public place. They can be really anywhere. I've gone to Fireside Gatherings in a college campus that they just have a public meeting space. I've gone to businesses like game shops. I've gone to coffee shops. I've gone to restaurants. Bars are a really good place to meet. So all that you really need to host a Fireside Gathering is a public space and Wi-Fi access, and that's it. And then the innkeeper, whoever is pulling everyone together, can really cater the event however they want to. If they want to make a competition out of it, they can make a competitive event. If they want to make it just a real casual event where people just show up and hang out and just talk Hearthstone, that's great too. Now, Blizzard puts extra or gives you extra tools to actually pull off a Fireside Gathering. So when you do show up, the innkeeper sets up the event. They have a special menu that's presented to them to set up the event, and it's geocached. So when they show up, they get to choose like what Wi-Fi it's on and what location it's hosted in. And then anyone that shows up in that area or is on that Wi-Fi that launches Hearthstone will get redirected to a special menu. And that's the tavern menu. And so you'll see the innkeeper's tavern sign, which they get to pick and customize themselves. And then there's special game modes that you can play there that you can't play anywhere else. And those are the Fireside Brawls.
Yeah, I'd have to say that the Fireside Brawl sometimes can be the biggest pull. I think to me, there have been some brawls that are pretty memorable as far as like fighting against the Lich King, everyone just taking on the Lich King with him having an impossible number of health points and everyone's working together to take him down. Or more recently at some of the pre-release brawls, there's this one brawl that I really wish would appear as a normal tavern brawl at some point. And that's the one where you can play with anything. Cards from multiple classes, any class, however many you want.
All the duplicates you want.
Duplicates you want. Why do we not have this as a normal tavern brawl? And I think part of the reason why we don't have this as a normal tavern brawl, and if you've heard anything to this effect, I'd love to hear it, but I imagine they've kept it exclusive to Firesides because that's kind of one of the special things about Firesides to attract people to those pre-releases.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really fun. It's called No Cards Barred,
Yep.
and you can pick any class you want and put any number of cards in your deck as long as they're cards that you own. So what's cool about that is it's kind of limited because you can only open up the packs that you pre-ordered. You only have the cards that you have. You don't have an unlimited number of right. Every card. You don't have every legendary for sure. So it kind of makes picking and assembling your deck a little bit more special. I think if they were to continue that and have that at another time, people have gone through and disenchanted their extra copies of cards, so you won't have like 10 copies of a single card in there. And you kind of punish people for then disenchanting their cards.
Yeah.
I remember I talked to Pat Nagel, who has come to some of the pre-release parties and some of the firesides, and he basically said the same thing. He said they played around with it a little bit as a game mode, but it's just not quite as special as when you have just a limited pool of cards and you have lots of copies of some common cards.
Yeah, I guess one thing that we forgot to mention here is that you're local to the Southern California area, so you're close enough to Blizzard headquarters that people like Pat Nagel or other designers can show up to these things too.
Yeah, actually, one of my favorite firesides I ever threw was I originally was in Arizona when I started hosting firesides, but then I moved to California and I threw a couple, and then I decided just to have a really casual meetup, and I found a milkshake shop that's called The Straw, and it's like adult milkshakes. And so I'm like, hey, that should be a fun place. It'll be like an ice cream social, but it's going to be a milkshake social for Fireside. So I put together this event, and then halfway through the event, Ben Brode walks in the door. Nice. And I look up, and I'm like, Ben!
Just out of nowhere.
Yeah, so He said he was just there for a milkshake. He didn't even know that the Fireside was going on. So I don't know if that's true, but he sat down.
He knew.
He joined us.
Maybe he had just got done eating a great grilled cheese sandwich and decided he needed a milkshake to wash it down.
Yeah, did he bring grilled cheeses for everyone else? Because that would have given it away.
No, that was before his grilled cheese fame.
Yes.
So we just knew him as, Ben Brode from that game that we like.
Right, yeah. He was small time back then.
Well, I mean, I've been talking your ear off for quite a bit. I have a couple more questions, but Kevin, do you have any questions you want to ask Scott?
Yeah, I was curious. So, I mean, you've mentioned a lot of these side activities that you've got going on, and they all sound awesome for sure. For me, like I've been to some of our local firesides here in Kansas City, and they're all fun. Like for me, it's all about meeting with the people. Like I've literally gone to these and just opened up packs and chatted with people. Like not even really sat down to play a game. But yeah, the more like gimmicky, fun things you have on the side, I think the more that it just kind of gets people out of their shell, kind of breaks the ice. And I mean, getting people up in front of a stage and reading off lines sounds like a great icebreaker there for sure. So I guess my question is, if you could tell us a little bit about your brainstorming process for those fun side activities. Like, do you just try to theme them around whatever content's coming out Hearthstone side, or do you just kind of go with the flow?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on the theme. Like when Gadgetzan was coming out, I made like a newspaper that was like the Gadgetzan Gazette, and then I made little quests that you would see maybe like want ads in the newspaper, or there was like a potion maker wanted, and there was like the different gangs were fighting each other. So like sometimes it can be inspired by stuff like that, and sometimes it's just something that you have an idea for that would be fun, and then you find a way to squeeze Hearthstone into it. One thing that we've brought to a lot of events is a Hearthstone taboo, basically. So we built I have a website that I host a lot of the different Fireside assets on that we created, and that's hsinnkeepers.com. At least for now, it's there. And one of the things we have is just a card generator that randomly will generate the artwork for a card. So you just put that up on a screen behind someone, and then you flip through those cards, and then their friends have to act out the cards, or they have to.
That's cool.
Yeah, they have to get them to guess the name of the card without saying the card or the class it's from or the mana cost or anything.
Are they allowed to say the voice line that's played when you play the card?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's the best if they know it. Yeah, so like I like to riff off of games that I'm a fan of, and I like to just think of the theme. For the All Hallows Eve, we did a really fun cursed fireside, where I wanted it to be like the more games that you win, the more points you get, and the better prizes you can win. But also the harder it gets for you. So basically, every time you win, you would have to draw a card from this deck of cards that was cursed, and one of them would be like Divine Shield. And if you got Divine Shield, you would actually physically get wrapped up in Saran wrap and have to play. And then if you got like the Angry Chicken, you had to wear these chicken mittens, these gloves. And so like these people that are winning more and more games, it affects you in game and out of game. So if you get the Angry Chicken mittens, you also have to put 2 Angry Chickens into your deck. So your deck is constantly getting worse. You're getting more covered in all sorts of stuff in real life. But so it gets harder and harder for you to play and then harder to win.
Was this before or after Rise of Shadows?
This was before.
Okay, because I want to say, I remember Rise of Shadows, they did that whole kind of community stream where they had, a lot of the personalities playing each other, and they would throw in things like whoever was ahead, they'd give them a disadvantage, kind of like what you're talking about. So it's kind of cool that you came up with that concept well before that. I love it. I think it's an awesome idea.
So if you're dressed as an angry chicken, is the optimal way to play with your nose? Pecking at your screen?
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean,
clearly,
at least if you're on a touch screen of some kind, right?
Yeah. So the mittens I got were really loose. They were loose knit, so you could kind of like wiggle your fingers through them. But if you needed to, then you could use your nose. Absolutely. I think you really can anytime. Way. Yeah, right. Of course.
Yeah. No one's ever stopping you.
I mean, that's how I play normally. Isn't that how you play?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I only think so, though. I black out when I do it. Anyway.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But there's no rules. That's what's so fun about it, is you can be as creative as you want, There's also a deck of deck building that I made. So it's just a deck of cards that has a different deck building challenge on each of it. So I'll bring that anywhere I go. And anytime people want a challenge, I'll just drop the deck of cards out and they'll pick a card and it'll have a challenge for them to build a deck. Like Legendary Curves says you have to have one minion of every mana legendary in your deck. So you have to have a 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, all the way up to 10 mana legendary. There's another one that says colorful, and you have to just pick a color like purple, and then every card in your deck has to have that color in it.
That's awesome.
So there's a lot of ways you can be creative.
That's something you will not see in Tavern Brawl, I don't think, ever. Is the color brawl. They'd have to do some serious coding there.
Oh man, I can't even imagine. And I don't think there's a good colorblind mode for that either.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, one question that I have is, I mean, obviously you take Fireside Gatherings to another level, but I think one of the cool things about this is that, especially over, more recent months and stuff, Blizzard has taken steps to make it available so that anyone can create a Fireside Gathering. You can even technically have a small-scale Fireside Gathering that you host within your own home. Kevin and I may or may have not done that just to open packs early a couple of times on this show.
Can neither confirm nor deny. Yeah.
Right. But for someone who's like genuinely looking at starting a Fireside Gathering, trying to get, people in their community together to, get together, enjoy Hearthstone and have fun, what advice would you have for like the aspiring innkeeper?
Yeah, really, like I said, all you need is a place. That's the first thing you want to look for, is just what's a space you like to hang out, you feel comfortable in. And then all you need to do at that point is just register an event on firesidegatherings.com. It gets posted, but then you want to kind of try to reach out to people around you that might be interested, either personally or go to game shops or go to Facebook page. In the early days, that's how we mostly communicated, was just with a Facebook group. So starting a local Facebook group of enthusiasts in your area is a good way to go about it. But then, really all you need to do is just pick a place and a time and put it on firesidegatherings.com and then just show up. And the most important part is just to be welcoming and to be a good host, just to be excited when people come in and just make people feel welcome. And then I like to, reach out to people after the event was over too, after the fireside, and make sure they had fun. See if you want to be friends on BattleNet, play some games in the in the middle. That's kind of how you build community. So in Arizona, we did the same thing. We started off just hosting these events at a local barcade, and they kind of grew bigger and bigger just because it was a place that people wanted to come to. And people came not for the crazy events and not for special giveaways or anything. It was always just to go and hang out with friends.
Awesome. Kevin, you got more questions?
Yeah. So, okay, now that you've moved to California and you're a little bit closer to Blizzard, and people like Pat Nagel just occasionally drop by, which, by the way, he's been on this show. I don't know if you know that, but
oh, that's awesome.
Had a little interview with him. Yeah.
I thought I remember hearing that actually. So isn't he a great guy?
Oh yeah,
He's
really
the
great
best
guy.
Oh, yeah.
I would have loved to have just sat down and talked to him only about the history of World of Warcraft, but there wasn't enough time, and it's a hard show. But anyway, so now that you're there, you're a little bit closer to the Illuminati, anyway, if not a member yourself secretly. I guess my question is, and you don't have to go into crazy detail about this, but I'm just curious about the history of how the Fireside program has evolved over time, and I guess more specifically, how you interacting with Blizzard in the capacity of one of the top innkeepers has helped even evolve it into what it is today.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I just started hosting casual events, like I said, in the barcade. But then every time I host an event, I'm someone who kind of always wants to do everything as well as I can do it. So every time I would host an event, I would actually take a step back afterwards, think about what I can improve to make it more inclusive. I wanted it. I didn't want people to show up with a giant, collection and then just crush everyone else and, ruin everyone else's happiness. So I tried to figure out ways. I started off just hosting mostly tournaments, and tournaments are fun. But when you get kicked out and when you get, smashed in the first round of a tournament, you leave and you don't want to come back again. So I made my events more geared towards everyone. I wanted everyone to have a good time. And if I did have a tournament, I would have side events after the tournament so that everyone could keep participating. And if there's prizes, I split the prizes up between the competitive and the casual events. And then I started to grow the events into more creative things. And I think Blizzard took notice of that. And when they did, I got the opportunity to start hosting more official events like Tavern Hero qualifiers back in the day. And then also playoff events. So I was hosting more official esports events at the venues in Arizona. And I took the opportunity. We formed a statewide Arizona league of all of the Fireside innkeepers, and then we made a league where you could go to any Fireside in the state, and you could earn points that you could get an invite to a house cup, at the end of each season. So we tried to kind of expand it. We tried to keep growing it, and because of that, Blizzard gave us some more opportunities, and they would bring us out once a year, the more prominent innkeepers, to an innkeeper summit. And that was really where we could kind of get together and share ideas and talk to each other and hear what was coming down the pipeline from Blizzard, and talk to the all of the employees and the people behind the scenes and the developers.
Oh, so you do go to Hearthstone summits?
Well,
I knew he was an Illuminati, Brian. I knew it.
He's not part of the Hearthstone Illuminati. He's part of the Hearthstone Illuminati.
Ooh,
that's true.
That's so good. Why isn't that a thing? Anyway.
But yeah, that's pretty much how it all happened. And then at some point we moved out to I moved out to California, and there's just, I guess, maybe more opportunities out here. I had more chances to host events like with Tempo Storm. And then I did a couple of events with the Hearthstone community team where I would go to PAX East, or I would go to San Diego Comic-Con, and a team of innkeepers would get together and we would brainstorm ideas, and then we would host a really cool community event, basically. So over the years, I've had, I think, over 20 times that I've been contracted by Blizzard to host events with them, which is pretty rad. And I've hosted every single playoff event from the past that they had at multiple sites, basically. So I've been really lucky and fortunate. There's not a lot of innkeepers who have gotten to do everything that I've gotten to do, but I try to involve everyone as much as possible. So there are opportunities, but over the years, I would say it's changed a little bit because there's not as many opportunities to be involved for live Hearthstone events. There's no playoff system that kind of goes everywhere now, and so the esports events are kind of hard to come by. The actual attendance at Fireside Gatherings has kind of waned a little bit too, because there's just it's hard to convince people to put pants on and come to a venue, like when they can play at home, especially if it's not something new and exciting. I've luckily kind of made a brand out of myself where people know if they're going to come to, a Bytes event, that it's going to be something special. So I can still kind of pull crowds, but I can't, have a weekly Fireside. Which is kind of the fun of it. I still go to, firesides in my area as a person who just wants to play Hearthstone. But the crowds aren't what they used to be. So at a certain time, there may be 40 or 50 people that would show up to events, and now it's more like, 10 or 20.
God.
Well, I hear these rumors that 2020 is going to be the year of Hearthstone now. That's what Twitter's telling me anyway. So who knows?
And I hope if people just are more excited to play the game, then that'll get more people to come and play the game in person. There's obviously a relationship there, as far as how hyped people are. But there's also, when you talked about, the opening up firesides to private events, so that anyone can be an innkeeper. Something is, you lose a little bit something with that also. Whereas, when we were hosting a pre-release party, if there was only, like these premier pre-release parties that you had to go to open your packs, they were kind of special because we would have like 300 people show up at this giant arena, and it would just be an amazing event. But now, anyone can just open up their packs at home. There's not that incentive. It doesn't feel as special. So trying to incentivize people to come out to an event is it's difficult. And when you make everyone an innkeeper, it also makes innkeepers feel a little less special.
When everyone's an innkeeper, no one's an innkeeper. Does that even work?
Exactly.
I think so.
Yeah. So, because there's really no incentive for an innkeeper to host an event. When you think about it, you're not getting anything out of it. You just have to be someone who is like a dungeon master in D&D, someone who enjoys to create these worlds and enjoys to push that activity out to other people, and gets pleasure from hosting them. But if people aren't showing up, then you don't get that enjoyment either. So you have to either have people show up, or you have to incentivize the innkeepers to come out and be the champions to pull people together. But right now there's nothing in it for the innkeeper. We don't get any swag, we don't get any special treatment. And back in the day when everyone, when you had to write in after an event, what your experience was as an innkeeper, it was more hands-on. It felt like you were part of the inside. You were part of that Illuminati. Now it just doesn't have that same kind of vibe. You don't feel that special as an innkeeper anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of curious, especially over the past year. One has to wonder if the change in the amount of resources that the team has had, and I'm just going to put it out there. It's been, Kevin mentioned this in the notes, and I realize this too. It's been a little over a year since there were layoffs, and even the Hearthstone team had some layoffs, and I know the esports end of Hearthstone got affected to a degree. I don't know how much it would have necessarily impacted how they carry on stuff and, do all the Fireside Gathering stuff with you guys. But one has to wonder, do you feel like things changed a year ago, or have they kind of been in this state for longer than that?
Well, one of the layoffs was Jesse Hill, who was basically the person that was in touch, and he was the one that was helping all the innkeepers in North America, at least. And so it was a huge loss to us. And there was riots on our Hearthstone innkeeper Discord. People were just like, I have no will to host events anymore. I can't support this. I will say that, lately, especially, they brought in new community members. So Kurt is one of the guys who is awesome. And he's basically taken that role that Jesse had and he's trying his best. He's come from a different background, but he's been in the Discord, and he's been having these town hall meetings where anyone can come and we can all just talk to him about what we want for the future and what made this program special. So I think it's finally getting to a point where it feels like Blizzard and Hearthstone is listening again. But now it's really at that they're listening, but it's at that crucial point where they got to put their money where their mouth is, and to see if they're actually going to support the innkeepers the way that they want to, because it could be anyone has the desire to make everyone happy, but whether or not they actually have the tools to make people happy is another story.
Well, I mean, I think it's sounds good to me that at least there is that line of communication going on right now, because if there was no communication, then I might be naturally a bit concerned. But at least it sounds like you guys have better communication than, say, top arena players have with the Hearthstone team right now.
Oh, that feels sad. No, it does feel that way, and we did feel abandoned for quite a long time. But now we just having that little bit of contact is really important.
Cool, awesome. Kevin, any other questions you wanted to ask before we move on?
I mean, before I ask my last question, I just want to know: did you notice me sipping my drink out of this Fireside prize right here? Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. No, I didn't. But...
Mm-hmm. For the audio listeners, it's one of the big steins. So
sorry, just as you said that, my monitor went to sleep because I had jiggled my mouse. So I was just going to pretend and say, "Oh, wow, that's really cool." But then it came back and I saw it. So
I mean, if you had pretended, I wouldn't have noticed the difference. It's okay. No worries. Yeah. Anyway, So, man, all this talk about Fireside Gatherings is weirdly making me hungry for Buffalo Wild Wings. Is anyone else with me on that one? Anyway, no. Okay, so. Just real quick about your cosplay as Hearthstone Brew.
Yeah.
When you went to BlizzCon dressed as him, did anyone actually come up to you and try to, warm their frozen boots by the fire?
Everyone. It was
everyone, literally everyone.
Yeah. No, it was. So originally I made that cosplay for one of the playoff events. I just wanted to come. We had a big playoff / Fireside Gathering, and I built for this event. I wanted to go all out. I built this giant mountain with a talking Lich King head on top that would actually move around.
A picture of that on
and you had to defeat the Lich King. So there was like smoke and there was like rumbling effects, but there was like a buttons, and it was kind of like a Simon Says where you had to press the different rune symbols on this mountain, and they would make different noises depending on what expansion they were from, and they had the different expansion symbols. But anyway, it was an event that I put a lot of effort into, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the cosplay for this event, and so. That's what I made it for. But then I worked with someone that had worked on the show Face Off. They made like a custom prosthetic for my face, and I wanted to get more use out of it. So I decided to go again for two BlizzCons. I didn't go on this last BlizzCon, but for the two before that, I dressed in cosplay, and people just kind of assumed that I was like part of the show. I really wasn't, but.
Oh, like one of the actually, yeah.
Yeah, like I was hired by Blizzard to be there. And I worked really hard on the accent. So, I would be like, all right, I'm going to give you a couple lines here.
Go for
Please do. Yeah.
Warm your frozen boots by the fire. So,
something like that. Could have done.
Yeah. No,
and then my favorite time would be when I went to the bathroom in this costume. It would be very awkward, but I would hold the door open for people and I'd be like, "It's cold out there, but it's warm in here." That's great. Yeah.
Yep.
That's amazing.
But yeah, no, it was fun. I worked on all the little voice parts, and because of that, people would give me check at me. Like when when they walked by, they'd be like, "Wow, that's really cool," and then I would hit them with a voice line, and they would be like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And so I had this line of people, like an hour-long wait to take a picture of me at one point. I was but the second year, I had my friends come as handlers for me, and they helped me usher me through, and I didn't get stuck. But no, it was really cool. I felt very famous.
Awesome. Well, Scott, it's been wonderful having you here, and I'd like you to stick around for it just for the entirety of our show. We got a few of our normal segments and routines to go with, and I'd love to get your input on a couple of these things as well.
Of course. I love talking about
Yeah.
Hearthstone.
We can finally stop this interview stuff and just kick back and like actually talk about the game. Yeah.
All right. Let me get comfy.
Please
All
do.
right.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay, so let's start out the way we usually start out. Kevin, what have you been playing lately?
So I could go over, because I hit Double Dad Legend for the first month ever this month. Usually don't care about it, but I've been having this weird itch to push for golden heroes and then eventually the 1,000 wins, of course. So I got the golden paladin, and I did it with mech paladin in standard, and then I went from 20 to 5 with odd paladin in wild. So that helped for sure. And I don't really have a lot of tips for those decks. I mean, play minions and hit your opponent. There you go. You know, if you're odd paladin, hit your hero power summon, buff up the Silverhand Knights. You're done. Anyway, but I do want to talk at least briefly about the Beats solo content priest deck that can be used in really any solo content, but definitely Galakrond's Awakening. I didn't really come across this until I saw the. Of course, I constantly follow the Ben Hearthstone, the Hearthshare account on Instagram and Twitter. And he was posting to it. By the way, I think that guy is Illuminati, for the record.
Oh, he has to be.
Yeah. So anyway, so he was just posting it. And really, like, as a deck, it's just a Resurrect Priest. But it's a Resurrect Priest that leans a little bit on... you don't have much of an early game, so you have to rely on things like the Greater Healing Potion and a couple other items to get you through, like, turns 1 through 4. So you do run into some encounters where if they're able to just rush out a bunch of stuff early and they have some sort of broken mechanic to buff them, like I'm kind of blanking on the name, but like the Gronstalker guy who on Heroic constantly has a refreshing 1-cost hero power that buffs everything by 1/1, kind of like Gruul, of course.
The name doesn't come to my head, but I know who.
Yeah. But anyway, so he was one that I had to do some resets on because there were just some times where he'd put out something huge and I'd, I didn't have the removal for it. And I mean, I'd wait a little bit and maybe get a mass hysteria off, but wasn't enough to take care of it. But anyway, if you can get rolling though, it's wild because this deck, honestly, the majority of the fights in Heroic Galakrond's Awakening, you feel like you're more powerful than the boss that you're fighting, no matter what they're doing. Yeah, you got to try this out, Brian.
Have you even tried going up against Rafam with this deck yet?
Okay, so yeah, I did on the evil side. I went against Galakrond at the end, and that one I can't quite clear with this deck. So I did switch over to the League of Explorers side and was trying to finish that off. And I mean, I got deep with that. I'm on the 4th wing of Heroic there too.
Wow.
So I'm on last boss of evil, second to last boss of good, and it was all with this deck. Almost all of those were 1-shots, and some of them I reset like once or twice. That's how crazy this deck is. So what you're doing is you're obviously trying to get up toward things like the Convincing Infiltrator, 5 mana, 2/6, taunt, death rattle, destroy a random enemy minion. Because when you're bringing enough of those back with like Resurrect and Eternal Servitude and stuff like that, and I mean, obviously, this deck also runs 2 Lesser Diamond Spellstones, which can resurrect up to 4 things if you stage them up, 2 Mass Resurrections. And then, like, the minions that you have in this deck are all things that you would just want back, or that you would want out of Shadow Essence. So, like, we're talking. I mean, some of the yes, you'd have to have collected some of these. It would be an expensive deck to put together. Apologies there, but you got like Katrina Muerte, Kel'Thuzad, the Lich King, copy of Obsidian Statue, which is in the same vein as the Convincing Infiltrator. Just insane in terms of like that thing. As you start resurrecting it back, you then get healed as you're then blocking attacks while killing the enemy as you die with the death rattle there. But really, like, the MVP of this deck, and what might be just a problematic card in general, is Archmage Vargoth for sure. Because like you do things like Convincing Infiltrator on 5, it dies. Vargoth plus resurrect on turn 6, and then you got 2 of them, they die. Who cares? You can even do the just 2 minion Lesser Diamond Spellstone on 7, get all those guys back. If Vargoth dies, if you just drop him on 4 and he dies to something, you probably blocked 6 damage worth of attack to your face, and I already told you about how you struggle with the early game.
Right.
And then he comes back in the resurrections, bringing back more things. And I'm telling you that you fill your board with things that are taunts that then kill a random enemy, and you win so many of your games. Like it's kind of easy, and it's
Does it go to fatigue a
concerningly
lot?
easy. So I did only once.
Okay.
I decked out I think like George the Fallen.
All right.
But yeah,
I think that last boss is going to be a problem on both of the wings. I mean, it's in heroic that is the real challenge. I think.
Oh yeah.
I'm having a hard time with it.
Oh, yeah?
Are you stuck on both of those?
Yeah, I haven't put too much time into it because I'm supposed to be prepping for DreamHack, but
Sure.
Right, that's coming up later this week. Actually, it's one reason why we're recording this interview a little bit earlier than usual. But just really quick, Simon, since we talked about it, what's happening? What are you doing over at DreamHack this weekend?
Oh, I'm just gonna go and enjoy myself. I rented a bring your own computer chair. You know, like, so I have a section. I'm gonna bring my own computer. My friends are sitting next to me, so we're gonna do some LAN gaming, wander around, do some tabletop gaming. But I'm also gonna play there's a Hearthstone tournament hosted by Bemi. So it's I think a $2,500 prize pool, and right now there's not too many people signed up. There's like probably gonna be like 50 or 60 in that tournament. And it's Swiss and best of 5 conquest, but you know, it's Muzzy's playing in it and Just Saying is playing in it. It's not going to be easy by any means. There's definitely a lot of really good players that are signed up, but
I think it's just awesome that there is a non-Blizzard Hearthstone tournament going on. I mean, one that isn't necessarily like that Blizzard's pushing behind. I would love to see more community Hearthstone tournaments. We saw that at the beginning, but I feel like those have kind of taken a step to the side because of Grandmasters and Masters Tour and all that stuff.
Yeah, I really miss the you know, the old traveling tour stops, but where you could see a lot more of that. But you know, we're trying, like Bemi is one that's been doing a lot of hosting of tournament events, and I did, like in November I did a battleground tournament that was open to everyone called the Battle Grind, and I'm trying to bring that back as like a regular event also. But yeah, I love that there's something that I can participate in.
Cool.
Wouldn't it be great if you could throw a Battlegrounds tournament with like 8 people queuing together?
Yeah,
and maybe there's some people out there that know about this kind of thing. I don't know.
Right?
Seems like the kind of thing that they could come out with. Anyway.
It's possibly something we may learn about in the near future. We'll see. But before I talk about what I've been playing, Bites, before you get to DreamHack, what have you been messing around with lately now that we have all of the Galakron's Awakening cards at our disposal?
Yeah, honestly, I've just been playing Highlander Mage because it's just fun. I love creating all sorts of random events, and now that I have the amazing Reno, he's in all of my decks, all my Mage decks, because I really don't think he's a good card, but it's just so much fun.
No, he is the perfect card for me. I've been playing Highlander Mage more than any other deck since Descent of Dragons came out, and Reno was just the cherry on top. I so agree with you. I mean, there's another deck that I've been playing to like get my monthly wins and all that stuff done, but Highlander Mage is pretty much where it's at.
Yeah, I've been bouncing around like rank 2 and 3 with it. Like, I feel like I can hang with it pretty well. I'm not playing the best of the best decks, but I'm trying to squeeze in a few matches here and there of, you know, I'm playing Hunter, I'm playing Warrior. I'm trying to come up with a lineup for DreamHack. Yeah. But mainly it's been Mage, and I'm at 997 wins on Mage. So
then you have to cap that off.
Yeah, tonight I'll probably finish that off.
Nice.
I hope for the best.
That is cool. I'll have to get that list from you. I'm obviously not that close to 1,000, but it's one of my classes I want to work on. So Highlander Mage would do it.
It's fun.
Awesome. Well, when I haven't been playing that, Highlander Mage is, of course, a ton of fun. When I haven't been playing that, what I have been playing, especially now that all the Galakron cards are out, Making Mummies Reborn Quest Paladin. Shotbot is so good. It's like
He's always seemed like he would be.
it is the perfect 2-drop in that deck. If you don't have two of the mummy Murlocs, Mumlock or whatever the card is, I forget its name.
Micro Mummy.
Well, there's Micro Mummy too, but I'm talking about the Murloc Mummy.
Oh yeah, okay. I don't know.
The Mermy, I think it's called the Mermy. Anyhow, just Shotbot is a perfect addition to the deck. I've been getting the quests completed on anywhere from turn 4 to turn 6 with a lot of regularity, and once you have the hero power change so that it makes a 2/2 copy of a minion that you control, and you're copying mechanical whelps, you're copying stuff that Ziliax or Snip Snap has magnetized onto, it just gets insane. I mean, I feel like I have a deck that can go toe-to-toe with a lot of the other decks out there. So far, my win rate with Paladin when I'm actually playing on the ladder, which I don't do a whole lot of, but when I have to do it to get a card back, I'm winning at least half of my games. Like, if I wanted to seriously climb on the ladder, I could play this deck, but yeah, if I just need wins, I'm playing this deck. If I want to have fun, I'm playing some wacky Highlander Mage variant. If I want to actually win, I've been playing Reborn Quest Paladin and having a good time with it.
Yeah, very cool.
All right.
I'll have to give that one a shot. I haven't tried it yet.
It's a lot of fun, and I think Mech Paladin and just the Reborn Quest Paladin, and Mech Paladin, of course, itself, that not necessarily running the quest, but just Mech Paladin has been an interesting deck to look at. So Paladin, I think, is in a good spot right now. Not in a broken spot, just it's different than it used to be, but I feel like Paladin's in a good space.
Do you feel like there's like the meta's in a good space? Like, I don't know, personally I feel like there's just really good decks, like a lot of different varieties of decks, and across every class almost.
Yeah,
and I can't think of anyone that's totally dominating either, so I think it is in a pretty good spot.
There are decks I don't like to play against, right? I mean, like, in Big and Druid, it annoys me. Res Priest annoys me, but it's not like how it was back when it was just shaman this and shaman that, you know, like the age of terror that was Galakron shaman for a while before the nerfs happened. It's nothing like that. There's definitely multiple deck types that you can run. There are decks that are going to frustrate you, but you have multiple options available to you. And so, that being said, I think that the Year of the Dragon is ending in a pretty good spot, and it actually makes me a little concerned for what's going to happen when we have so many cards rotate out.
Sure.
Well,
that's always my favorite time, though. It's going to be fun.
It's one of my. I'm afraid and excited at the same time. The year change is always an exciting time. Before we talk about some of the rumor and discussion that may be going on with the change of the year, let's move on to our Brawl Breakdown. And for the Brawl Breakdown, this week, Kevin, clones are attacking. And no, it's not because Hearthstone was bought out by Disney and turned into a Star Wars game.
No, sadly, although that day is coming, make no mistake. No, but anyway, yeah. So this one is pretty standard stuff in the sense that, if you play a minion, you then get a 1/1 copy of it. It's kind of like what Xeric's Cloning Gallery does, at least to some degree. But, I mean, the catch is, as you know, if you've checked this one out, it's with random decks, so you're not playing with optimal stuff. You can do some interesting things, though. The win that I had was with Hunter, which I actually found to just have, like, it's a random deck, but at least Hunter as a class has pretty good beast synergies.
And Death Rattles.
And Death Rattles, yeah, which, I mean, on a 1/1, that's what you're looking for in some cases, So it's actually, I do have kind of a funny story from it. So in that game, I had I had a copy of the, I don't know, the 0/3, the spirit. I'm blanking on the name, but it gives +1/+1 to beasts.
The totem
from Rastikan's Rumble. The
Spirit of the
No.
Oh, what is it? It's not Rhino. It's Wolf.
No, yeah, I think maybe wolf. It's like a green wolf kind of coming out of the top.
Yeah.
But anyway, when you play one, then you get another stealth 1/1 copy. And I just happen to have some of those sand wasps where you drop them and then you get those extra ones in your hand.
Oh.
And it got a little out of control pretty quick. So that was pretty fun. But yeah, I mean, it is a randomized one. And anyone who's listened to this show for any length of time kind of knows how we feel about some of those.
Been
But yeah.
getting a lot of random stuff lately, Kevin.
We might have been, yeah.
I'm you know what? I'm trying to stay. I'm really trying to stay positive about Tavern Brawls, but boy, the last few weeks are making it challenging for me to stay positive about Tavern Brawls. Joe Magdalena, please come back. I miss you.
Oh, seriously.
But here's the thing: the Tavern Brawls are not bad. They are not terrible, and if I have anything to gripe about Tavern Brawls, by no means is my opinion going to echo the majority opinion of the player base. I'm just the kind of person who likes to build decks that have to deal with crazy rules. So, a crazy rule like this, when you have, play a minion, you get a 1/1 copy. If we were allowed to build a deck using our collection, then I would love this brawl, because I'd like, okay, what kind of crazy Death Rattle Synergy deck could I put together? Now, I also understand that one of the reasons for having brawls like this, where you pick a class, you get random cards, is because it puts everyone on a relatively level playing field, so that even people with small collections can feel like they have just as much of a chance against people with large collections that have been around for the game as long as I have. I get that. I get why that's happening. I get why that's being done, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I think my issue is it feels like we've been getting a lot of that recently. It's like we've had a pretty good streak where we're seeing a lot of brawls that are like that. Over 2019, and I actually looked back over last year's brawls, I may be off by one or two on this, but I did some really quick counting here. We had, in 2019, 15 constructed brawls, 15 randomized, 3 Brawliseums, 1 co-op, 10 with pre-made decks, and 7 which were PvE single-player brawls. That adds up to 51, so I'm obviously missing something. Maybe there was a brawl that ran for 2 weeks that I missed. And
probably web spinners, yeah, got it.
And also in 2019, it's roughly a 50-50 split between entirely new brawl events and repeats of brawl events. So I guess I haven't been feeling it a lot lately, because I feel like we're on a streak of randomness, and when it's not random, it's been something that we played before. So I'm not saying, oh my gosh, this is going to be the worst year of Tavern Brawl ever. Far from it. I'm hoping that because we have this streak where the brawls are kind of playing out the way it is right now, I'm hoping that there is a balance to that later on in the year, where we see a streak of build your own deck brawls. Scott, I know, of course, the Fireside Brawls are their own thing unto themselves, but how do you play Tavern Brawl quite a bit? And kind of like, what do you look for when you're playing Tavern Brawls? What kind of brawls excite you?
Sure. I like them all. I actually, just recently, there was 2 that were really good. There was the one that was like a mini adventure, which when the single-player content came out, they also released that. And I played that over and over and over again, and I had a blast, because I love dungeon runs.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, my favorite Fireside Brawl was something that I really wish they brought to Tavern Brawl, and it was called Dungeon Fun. And you actually queued up against someone with your current dungeon run deck. So you got to, like, you even if you finished the dungeon run, you had this insane crazy deck that started with all these crazy rules, where all of a sudden all your cards were down to 1 cost, and you have like 12 Dr. Booms, and you would actually queue off and play against each other with those decks, which was crazy and so fun.
That's so good. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the issue is if you only have 3 wins in your dungeon run, you're going up against someone with a 7-win dungeon run deck. It's very mismatched, but we would all play dungeon runs first and get like a good run going, and then we would play against each other, and it was a blast.
Oh my gosh!
But I mean, they could
do
a Tavern Brawl that's just like the craziest decks from. I mean, you could make all of them the full win decks, you know? And it's just nuts. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that'd be a blast. But yeah, I mean, I love, honestly, like when your time is limited, sometimes you look forward to those like, oh, cool, I don't have to build a deck this week.
Yeah.
Tavern Brawls. I really like the one that was the different zodiac signs. The year of the boar and the year of the bat and or whatever.
That was good. I just wish I could build a deck around that stuff.
Yeah, I can see that. And some of them were super overpowered. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like the mage, I found picking mage and going with the dragon one, where I think the dragons were. I believe the dragons were costing less, or whenever you played a dragon, it reduced the cost of stuff. The mage dragon one was the one I was sticking to quite a bit.
I can't remember. The one that gave you a coin, I think, was the one that I thought was crazy overpowered with rogue, or with if you got it. I think in mage, if you got it with a flame waker and you're just like spitting coins out.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really, in the Chinese zodiac, some of these animals are overpowered anyway. I mean, you can either be a dragon or a rat. Like, which of those do I want to be?
This is the year of the metal rat, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, It's a very cyberpunk year, which I like. I'm a big fan of that. Metal and rat together, I think, is great.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I love Tavern Brawls, and I'm sad to see Joe Mag go. But it's still, they got a few people on that team. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, and it's when I say, oh my gosh, I miss Joe, I want him back, I'm being a little over dramatic when I say that. I mean, of course, I wish Joe all the best at Niantic, and I hope he's having a whole lot of fun there. But I'm remaining optimistic and confident that we're going to see the kind of brawls that I have more of a tendency to want to play the heck out of as the year goes on. I'm just figuring, like, we're getting the randomness stuff out of the way, and then they're going to show me some crazy stuff that I'm probably going to play the heck out of and wonder, when am I actually going to queue for Arena or queue for Battlegrounds, because I'm playing Brawl all week. Nice. Those brawls will happen. They're going to get here sooner or later. I mean, it's only February, so I'm far from saying this is the worst year of Tavern Brawls ever. The start has just been a little slow for me, that's all.
To each their own. I kind of want to see your guys' like tier list breakdown of your favorite brawls.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Yeah, we can do that.
We could definitely do that. I would say that'd be something to do like later on toward the end of the year, especially after we see some more brawls out.
Yeah.
Kind of take a look at some of the newer ones too. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on. I'm not going to play the segment bumper for Battlegrounds Banter because really there's not a whole lot to talk about, and we are running a little bit long this week. There was one major change that was made over the past week, and that is Floating Watcher has moved from Tier 3 to Tier 4. I think we mentioned that on the last episode, if I want to say. It's a pretty significant change, Kevin, but I don't feel it's enough. Demons still seem to dominate Battlegrounds right now. What's your experience?
Yeah, I mean, Floating Watcher is a strong part of that for sure, but it's not, to me, like, Floating Watcher can be a big body that helps you get there, but the full synergy of having, like, a cascading set of Death Rattle demons, like Void Lord and that new guy, I'm blanking on the name, but, the 3/3 taunt that turns into a 1/1, and then Soul Jugglers after that, like, that, to me, is the strength of like, if you're going to win with demons, that's how you actually, like, pull out the first place. Some of that other stuff, if you just have good big bodies, you can get, like, third and fourth, and yeah, that's a win. Sure, sounds good. But so, yeah, this will help. I mean, any nerf brings down a tribe, make no mistake. It's just that, like, I never felt that Floating Watcher was a requirement to pull in, like, big, strong wins with demons. So, yeah.
Yeah. Scott, have you had much experience with Battlegrounds? Is that kind of your thing? And I'm just kind of curious what you've been playing as far as Battlegrounds go.
I haven't played it like this month probably, okay. Which I'm sad about. I just gotta pick my battles.
Yeah, totally.
Time is limited. But when Battlegrounds came out, I played I think 13, 14 times at BlizzCon. I just went back in line over and over and over again. And I was very proud because in one game I took out like a couple devs. I took out Korra and Puffin, and I made Ixar promise me that I earned their job because I had defeated them. But I haven't followed up on that. But no, when it started, I took the day off of work and I was ready and I stayed on the top 25 leaderboard all day. At one point, the very first scoreboard, it's Crip in first place and me in second place.
Nice.
That's so cool. Yeah.
I took a screenshot of that. Yeah.
You have to frame that screenshot.
Oh, man.
That's what you got to do.
Ridiculous Cat was also in that top 25, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I love Battlegrounds, and man, I had a blast. So the Battleground event that we threw together was like everyone started with a fresh account, and then we played for 12 hours straight. And we had over 90 people playing, a bunch, like 20 plus streamers. Everyone was streaming, and we had screens up all over the place, and we were multi-Twitch watching all the streams as admins. And we had casters casting it, and it was a blast. We had such a good time. And there's not any events right now for people who love Battlegrounds, so that's why I'm hoping that we can keep iterating on that and make more fun Battleground events. But I love Battlegrounds. I can't wait to play more.
That's about the coolest thing you can do with them right now in a public setting like that.
Yeah,
because you just have to create new accounts and grind.
I feel like we've only seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Battlegrounds, because I mean, obviously there has been the discussion talk of the Dragon Tribes going to be introduced to Battlegrounds. We do know from our interview that we had here on Hearthcasual that they are considering working on making 8-player friendly Battlegrounds a thing that you can actually do in game. Kevin, I have to wonder if some of those things were part of what was revealed at the Hearthstone 2020 Summit.
100% certain of that one, just because like I follow a lot of the just random Hearthstone community members on Twitter, and I think the clue for that, like whether Battlegrounds was an important part of the summit, actually comes from Garrett Weinzierl of the Angry Chicken. Ooh. Who was like, I forget what the quote said exactly on Twitter, but it said, yeah, the Hearthstone Media Summit's kind of just like all the time. I'm crushing out Battlegrounds games or something like that. So,
really?
I mean, yeah.
The only person I pulled up for like a quote was Frodan, because he was
That's because it's the...
Yeah. Frodan's kind of the one you go to. He was the first one to reveal like a picture with the Hearthstone 2020 Summit thing. And it's like, well, I guess we're just kind of dashing the rumors and speculations, saying, yeah, there's a whole bunch of high-profile Hearthstone people attending something at Blizzard right now. So
their NDA has to have some kind of special rule for that kind of thing.
Well,
because
they can talk vague social media stuff, sure.
But I'm saying that because I did do a Heroes of the Storm Media Summit back in it was actually March of 2017, and in that one they really had us be very hush hush about what we could share, and then the NDA had various times in which the embargo would lift with different parts of content. So we saw a lot of stuff that was even a few months out. We could only it was Heroes 2.0 and Cassia we could share within the week. But then we had played a build that had also Genji and Hanamura on it, and it was 3-4 months out before that actually came out. So we had a multi-layered embargo where we could talk about 2.0 when it was announced, and they gave us some assets to use on the show and everything. But then we had to be totally hush hush about Genji and all the rest of that stuff. So my guess is that there could be some stuff going on with that as well, because we'll get to Frodan's overall tweet here, but in the replies of that tweet too, he gets into the fact that because people are asking, when do the regular people get to find out? And he's talking about how pretty soon they don't have everything 100% prepared, so obviously it's not ready for the public to see. But they gave us a rough timeline of what's happening. I don't want to get in trouble and promise a date, but the closest thing will be very soon. So that makes me think that they know kind of maybe even the timeline for the whole year and just can't speak about it until these things start rolling out. I could be totally wrong on that. I have no idea what they were shared. We're not part of the Illuminati. If anyone for Blizzard or anyone's listening in this, they know I didn't sign anything. I can say whatever I want. But yeah, just to give you guys some background on how Blizzard, at least in my experience, handled this kind of thing in the past, I could see that kind of thing going down.
I have to feel that we're going to find out something, if not at the end of this week, and in the first half of next week.
If not tomorrow,
right.
honestly.
It could honestly. We're recording this on Wednesday evening. It could come out on Thursday. Quite honestly, Frodan's tweet after attending, I guess, the bulk of the Hearthstone Summit, he said, "Still in shock after hearing what's planned for Hearthstone 2020. The developers remain as passionate as ever. They haven't given up on the game, not even close. If they can execute, this will cement Hearthstone for the next decade for new, returning, and veteran players." I feel that's an important tweet because Frodan is not one for hyperbole. And he has also been one in the past when Hearthstone's in a bad place, when it's not doing everything that it can. He's critical of the game. So for him to say this, I tend to give this more merit than, say, most other content creators saying this same tweet. The fact that it's coming from Frodan actually gives me a lot of hope for the game.
Yeah, he speaks from the heart, and this is from the heart. And if he's genuinely in shock and thinks that this is going to cement Hearthstone for the decade, and then even calls out the various groups, like, yeah. As soon as I saw this, I just kind of lost my mind, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
yeah.
Do we think, Scott, do you think that this may imply that some of that help for Fireside stuff is coming? What do you think? Do you think that we'll learn it? Do you think that some of the 2020 plans include some reinvigoration to the Fireside program? I know it's probably what you want, but how are you feeling about it right now?
Yeah, I really hope so. I don't know. I feel like it would take a lot of... it would almost take a relaunching to get it back to where it was. It might slowly just kind of build up back again into what it was, which would be great. But I feel like the Fireside Gathering, it's like maybe a different priority or a different team. I'm more excited about what the core Team 5 developer team is working on. I don't know anything that was revealed, but I do know a lot of the devs just from being here and just from having friends there. And I can tell you that they're like incredibly passionate people. Oh, and yeah. When they talk about, these guys haven't given up, they're right. Like these guys they put a lot of pressure on themselves and they care a lot. So I'm excited to see what that means. You know, I know that they're not afraid to take some chances. So I can't wait.
I feel like they're able to take even more chances nowadays. Like that's at least a vibe I get. I'm not as well connected to them as perhaps you, but I mean, I felt like, honestly, if 2020 is going to be the year of Hearthstone, I legitimately felt that 2019 was the year of Hearthstone.
Right? I thought 2019 was the year because of Battlegrounds, because of the events that they brought in during the blocks. I mean, if they
timing of content release, everything.
If they feel that 2020 is going to be bigger, I feel like 2019 set a pretty high bar. This feels like 2020 is going to set that bar higher. If it is, then great. I'm just like, what could it possibly be?
I now actually have something to be excited about the year 2020 about, if I'm honest with you. The rest of it seems kind of... Anyway.
So, really quick, one of the last things we're going to talk about here is one of the possibilities of what 2020 might mean, and that is, apparently, I think it was Ixar said recently that some cards might be considered for being unnerfed when they rotate into Wild from Standard. So as you guys might know, during the course of being in Standard, some of the cards that are currently in Standard were nerfed or adjusted because they were just too strong in the Standard environment. So once they move into Wild, like say when Dr. Boom Mad Genius goes into Wild, he could have his cost reduced. He could be reverted back to his original state. Kevin... I haven't been much of a Wild player recently. I mean, I have my weeks and months here or there where I play a lot of Wild. I don't know how much Wild you've been playing. Does this interest or excite you?
I mean, I went from 20 to 5 this month, so a bit. You know, it was a pretty good streak, so I didn't spend a ton of time in there. If I'm gonna be honest, but yeah, no, it's for me like. And honestly, even feeling out the Wild ladder in the way I did in those ranks, you could kind of get a sense of, you know, when people are just messing around with fun stuff versus when people are trying like honestly classic decks just for fun, and when people are really trying to be strong. And I think that it's that middle group I'm most interested in here, because those are people that really loved Handlock back in the day, and oh my god, I just need to go back and play like the original Handlock. If some unnerfs get you there, I think that's cool, honestly. So I'm generally for this. There are some that I'm not so for. For instance, I'm very much for Leroy Jenkins rotating to Wild this next rotation, but I'm not necessarily on board with him going back to 4 mana. Yeah, it might be a bit much. That would be an unnerf for sure from like way back when. And then there's stuff
insane
like
is what that would be.
yeah, and then well, like way too insane, obviously. And there's stuff like Reckless Experimenter was the 5 mana 4/6 from Boomsday. Death Rattle minions that you play cost 3 less but die at the end of the turn.
Yeah.
It used to not have a cap where you couldn't be reduced below 1. And like if they unnerf that one, then you reopen that whole crazy priest deck that I forget exactly how it went down, but you remember you played like the exact combination of like Coffin Crasher, then that, and then a couple of the whatevers, the abominations, and it became
OTK.
like an instant kill OTK. So like I hope that if they go through some unnerfs, I mean for one, I hope they paint with a broad brush and do a lot of them, but I want them to then look at cases like that and then say, well, but do we really want to do that? So I don't know. We'll see what they end up doing. But
I feel like we're reaching a point with Hearthstone where the game almost needs to take a page from Magic the Gathering and have a standard format, a wild format, and then a middle ground. I think, what do they call it? Legacy, or I'm trying to remember what the term for it is. But I know there is a middle format where you play a far wider selection of cards, but there's still a number of restrictions and nerfs and stuff like that. Someone who plays Magic the Gathering recently is going to write an email to the show and say, hey, it's this, but you guys know what I'm talking about. I think we've reached a place where I think a third general format for the game, it's about time.
yeah, could be. The tech's in the game to pull cards at various nerf states. I mean, remember the those end of the year brawls where you get to play as like the top decks from the various world championships, and you get to do like, oh hey, here's the unnerfed Dr. Boom, and here's this other thing. So I mean, if they can do it for a Tavern Brawl, maybe they can just do it, and you could just pull various decks from like different time periods even. I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
Well, I do think that the biggest thing that we're likely going to find out within the next week or so, I feel like we're going to find out the name of the year, and that this is something that we have talked about on the show quite a bit now. Of course, we're all rooting for Jocelyn Moffat on the Angry Chicken to finally get her Year of the Unicorn. I still think that that's a dream that will never come to be anytime soon. I'm all for Year of the Phoenix or Year of the Firebird. Kevin, do you think Year of the Alpaca can be a thing, or do you have another candidate for what you think the next Hearthstone year will be?
No, I'm standing strong with Year of the Alpaca, okay? Because there's a lot of alpaca love going on in World of Warcraft right now, as you know.
And we're seeing Volpera and Hearthstone, so...
That's right. I'm holding Dottie the baby alpaca plushie with me right now. If you're watching the YouTube, you see her right here. Little alpaca saddle packs and everything. So I mean, I'm just saying, Blizzard's on board with alpacas finally after like what, 25 years. It's the Year of the Alpaca, guys. I'm just throwing it out there.
All right.
Of course, keep in mind, I also thought that the last set of this past year was going to be a pirate set. So take my word with a grain of salt there, Scott, but I could be onto something, dang it.
All right, Scott, I got to give you the chance to predict it. What do you think the next Hearthstone year is going to be?
Oh, wow. You know what? I got the show notes, but I didn't even think about this. I'll say the Year of the Mech.
The Year of the Mech?
I don't even know if that's a thing.
Hey, you never know. I would, honestly... I would be more surprised by Year of the Mech than Year of the Alpaca, because I feel like we've had the Year of the Mech.
Yeah,
we at least had the expansion of the mech, but
yeah.
It's a good point.
Technically.
You never
But
know,
no,
though.
I could be on board with that.
It could be something entirely different, and it probably end up will be. I keep going with mythical monsters and stuff like that, but I mean, the Raven isn't necessarily all that mythical, so the year could be... It could be a fairly basic animal, creature, beast. It may not even necessarily be a beast. They could say it's the year of the storm or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah.
How about the year of the innkeeper? We'll go with that.
Year of the innkeeper.
There you go.
All right. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that is going to do it for episode 50. Scott, once again, thank you very much for being on this episode. This is also the 2-year anniversary of Hearthcasual. It means a lot to both Kevin and I that you could be on here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Oh, no, it was a pleasure. You guys are awesome.
And can you let our listeners know where and how they can connect with you and all the cool events and stuff that you do?
Of course. The best place is on Twitter, at BytesHS, BYTESHS. But if you're interested to see some of the crazy work that I've done, I have a website. It's bytesevents.com, BYTES-events.com. And it has a full listing of every major event I've ever hosted, a bunch of cool pictures. And then at the top of the main page, you'll see there's a story that Apple wrote about me being the innkeeper that's on the iTunes store. And there's also a video that I made that compacts all 3 years of events into 90 seconds. Nice. And just so you can get a really quick bite-sized piece of kind of what it is that makes this type of event special.
Awesome.
Yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out, guys, if you're listening to this, because if you want a visual to back up a lot of what we've been talking about, you want to see this, frankly.
That Lich King Mountain is amazing.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's
Thank
just
you.
one of so many things. So
yeah, the Witchwood tree was even more of an experiment, but I'll let people kind of discover that if they want to.
Right.
All right.
Super
Kevin,
cool.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, first off, thanks again for joining us. I don't think I got a chance to yet, so appreciate it there, Scott. People can find me on Twitter, at Multizord. That'd be the main place. Maybe in the World of Warcraft sometimes. Who knows?
All right. As for myself, you can find me at Brian Podcaster on Twitter. I also do a couple other shows called Realm Maintenance and Rolling Restart. Those 2 shows and Hearthcasual are all part of Warcraft Radio. You can go to warcraftradio.com to find all of the shows there, show pages for all of them, and all the other great content that we have there. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can listen to us as a podcast on most podcast platforms such as Spotify, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google, all that good stuff. You can find us in that and put us in your ears. We'll have a video cast, I would say, every now and then up on Warcraft Radio's YouTube channel, where you're watching right now. When the time and the event demands it. This is something, I mean, I've had a lot of fun doing this one. I don't think we're going to do it for every episode, but when it's a special occasion, you can find us right back here on Warcraft Radio's YouTube channel. And if you want to support any of that stuff for Warcraft Radio, you can go to patreon.com/warcraftradio. You can email us at hearthcasual@gmail.com, and you can find us on Twitter at hearthcasual. Feedback, reviews, all of that good stuff is greatly appreciated. Scott, once again, thank you for being on the show. Would love to have you back on in the future.
Anytime.
All right. And Kevin, I do not have a dad joke with me tonight to end up the show, so if you have one, feel free.
Oh gosh, I'm so unprepared. You'd think I'd be ready for this thing, because we've only started doing this dad joke bit the last few weeks.
Right.
So in my defense, I'm not totally prepared. So I've got good sources though, and I actually did see one the other day.
Okay.
That I kind of liked. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Filling dead air by talking about my experience here as I'm scrolling through on my phone. Blah 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 blah. Actually, no. Okay, so this is one I heard on another podcast. I'll just throw this out there. It's kind of Valentine's Day themed, and we just had that. So here we go. And I'm totally plagiarizing this John Jagger. Apologies. But roses are red, violets are blue. Oh, sorry. I already messed it up. Gosh dang it. Okay, let's do this again. Back up. Okay, let's rewind that. Maybe we can cut that, Brian. Can we cut that?
I don't know. Keep it in. It's
okay.
It's a very dad joke kind of thing to do.
Keep it in the show.
You're right. Messing it up is half the fun. Okay. Roses are red, blueberries are blue. I can't believe I had to explain blueberries to you.
I like it.
That's it.
Take care, everybody. We will see you in episode 51. Have a good one.
This has been a presentation of Realm Maintenance Productions and Warcraft Radio. Visit warcraftradio.com to find podcasts like this one, live streams, and much more.